So, um, okay, here we go. Um, this is a continuation from the other video. It just stopped and started the next hour. So, bear with me, beloved. Scrooge then appreciated at the warehouse. Scrooge then, after his sister died, he apprenticed at the warehouse storage facility of a jovial and generous master, Mr. Fezwig, and he fell in love with a young woman named Belle and proposed marriage. But gradually his love for Belle was overwhelmed by his love for money, and Belle realized this and, saddened by his greed, left him one Christmas, eventually marrying another man. So once again, we see Scrooge has reason to really hate this cycle and season of time um, and take it personal. His narcissistic view does not allow him to change the balance of his own ma'at. He's not able to say, no, I did not, no, I did not, the negative, because he did all these things. He had all these feelings, and his greed and everything else over his own, the need to make money. Some people see it as, oh, you're working hard, but some people become addicted to the habit. They become addicted to, hypnotized is what I'm being told. Almost hypnotized, nose to the grind. Do this. You gotta get in that cycle. Wake up, do it all over again. Wake up, do it all over again. Wake up, do it all over again. So you become so in tuned and focused on that. You don't focus on connecting and communication and loving and everything else with your wife and your spouse. And she realized what was happening, and her needs weren't being met. And so she left him on a Christmas. And she eventually married another man. The present day Scrooge reacts to these memories with a mixture of nostalgia and deep regret. So his conscious awareness of his experiences in life give him the ability to examine his polarities and his paradoxes. He's able to look back and reflect on everything that has happened, where he is now, how he was then at that particular time. And it says he did so with a mixture of nostalgia and deep regret. And nostalgia brings up the depths of feelings most times that were buried so deeply beneath the surface that at that time you didn't even allow yourself to feel them fully. But when you look back from a place of nostalgia, everything is deeper. Everything is more intense. It's larger than life. The connections they seem a lot stronger. You recall and you add on different emotions. You rewrite the narrative almost so that it becomes more soothing to your reflection of your nostalgia, suits your nostalgia more than the actual event. The ghost of Christmas present arrives next and shows Scrooge that his greed and selfishness has hurt others as well, particularly Cratchit. who cannot afford to provide his desperately ill son, Tiny Tim, with medical treatment because of Scrooge's merciless miserliness. The spirit tells a horrified Scrooge that Tiny Tim will die within a year and throws Scrooge's own heartless words about the poor and destitute back in his face. And grandmother says the root chakra and the throat chakra, the lips and the eyes, pay attention to, are highlighted in this part of the narration about Scrooge and the summation. And pay attention to um, those connections of how the chakras reflect um, the magnetic forces around the energy, currents, frequencies of receiving, transmitting, and transmuting. Finally, the ghost of Christmas yet to come shows Scrooge where his greed and selfishness will lead, a lonely death, servants stealing his belongings in lieu of pay, debtors relieved at his passing, and the Cratchit family devastated by the loss of Tiny Tim. Scrooge asks the spirit if this future can still be changed, but the spirit does not reply. Scrooge begs for another chance, promising to change his ways, and wakes up in his bed on Christmas Day. Overjoyed, Scrooge commits to being more generous and compassionate. He accepts his nephew's invitation to Christmas dinner, provides for Cratchit and his family, and donates to the charity fund. In the end, he becomes known as the embodiment of the Christmas spirit, as well as a second father to Tiny Tim. And here grandmother says pay special attention to the term second father, as it shows hindsight, wisdom, and responsibility of unconditional love from the sacred masculine lips and eyes, root and throat connection, bridged by the heart chakra. Several theories have been put forward as to where Dickens got inspiration for the character Ebenezer Scrooge. Ebenezer Scrooge, a merchant from Edinburgh who won a catering contract for King George IV's visit to Scotland. He was buried in Canongate Kirkyard with a gravestone that is now lost. The theory is that Dickens noticed the gravestone that described Scrooge as being a meal man, M-E-A-L, corn merchant, but misread it as mean man. This theory has been described as a probable Dickens hoax, for which no one could find any corroborating evidence. It has been suggested that he chose the name Ebenezer, which means stone of help, to reflect the help given to Scrooge to change his life. Commentators have suggested that the surname was partly inspired by the word Scrooge, meaning crowd or squeeze. The word was in use from 1820. Scrooge, S-C-R-O-U-G-E, Scrooge. One school of thought is that Dickens based Scrooge's views on the poor on those of the demographer and political economist Thomas Malthus, as evidenced by his callous attitude toward the surplus population. Another is that the minor character Gabriel Grubb from the Pickwick Papers was worked up into a more mature characterization, his name stemming from an infamous Dutch miser, Gabriel de Graaf. Jeremy Wood, owner of the Gloucester Old Bank, was possibly Britain's first millionaire, was nationally renowned for his stinginess, and may have been another model for Scrooge. The man whom Dickens eventually mentions in his letters, and who strongly resembles the character portrayed by Dickens, illustrator John Leech, was a noted British eccentric and miser named John L's or Yules, Elwes. And Kelly writes, Scrooge may have been influenced by Dickens' conflicting feelings for his father, whom he both loved and demonized. And grandmother said to pay extra attention to this. The character, what I have shared with you, um, were the characterizations of the Scrooge character. And as you can see, the character could be based upon many different um, archetypes, literal people, but the basic fundamental principles are people of wealth who are miserly or stingy. And all of those people were male who were mentioned. And grandmother says, pay attention um, to the conflicting feelings about the father, Dickens' father, whom he loved and demonized. This psychological conflict may be responsible for the two radically different Scrooges in the tale. One, a cold, stingy recluse, the other, a benevolent, loving man. Okay, just a little bit more, beloveds. I know this is kind of dry, but it's important as it gives you um, more content. Robert Douglas Fairhauser, a professor of English literature, considers that in the opening part of the book, portraying young Scrooge's lonely and unhappy childhood and his aspiration to rise from poverty to riches, is something of a self-parody of Dickens' fears about himself. The post-transformation parts of the book are how Dickens optimistically sees himself. And so basically what that is saying, beloveds, is that once again, grandmother is saying, understand the energy and the currents and your abilities as a divine being that incarnated multidimensional aspects of you that you can, as this just said, identify an aspect and manifest that aspect into your own life or envision something happening and it happens positively or negatively for you. You have that ability. And this is connected to the woman that the earth saved, whose presence is still here. And those who listen, as it said, to the commandments are still able to connect with that energy. So it's all connected, beloved. I hope that you are able to, I hope that's coming through clearly. What I'm sharing now is straight up what I wrote. So it's going to be a lot faster, quicker, a little bit more meatier, and won't be so dry, hopefully. Here we go. The revelation of hoarding found in the concept of white supremacy. Grandmother's revelation of reckoning and accountability, the haves and have-nots, aka the polarities and paradox of the ages. Hint, we are once again in the age of Aquarius. A cartoon image that I'm going to use as the cover photo for this video seeded a conscious awareness deep within me. I shared it on my Facebook page. We place value on things that we hope. Then we place value on things. Then we hoard them. And if others should place the same value, as if others should place the same value on them as we do. Each item carries a multidimensional charge. magnetic field around and within it. The currents that are exchanged subtly or with vivid conscious awareness. Exchange of magnetic currencies from all bodies, mental, thoughts, emotions are the feelings. Physical is within the environment or location, and spiritual is your conscious awareness. Energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be received, transmitted, or transmuted. Knowing this and looking at the image of the old grandpa taking his family member to his garage full of personal wealth that can be seen with the eyes and spoken on with the lips. Each of those items represents an exchange of magnetic currency. She keeps repeating this, beloveds. The exchange of magnetic currencies from all bodies, mental thoughts, emotional feelings, physical, the environment and location, spiritual, the conscious awareness. So, individually and collectively, think about energy accumulations that are unseen, that come from the other bodies, and multiply it by 10. What are you looking at then? What is being said or left unsaid? Remember, this is just an average lifetime, with maybe some items passed down through the generations with their own anchored energies that collect and add on energies yet to be passed on. Grandmother says this is why we call it his story. And again, beloveds, I want to take you um, the image that's going to be the cover of this video. It's a cartoon. Look at it. Observe. It's a old man with a walker leading his son or grandson to it, and it's just piled from the floor to the ceiling with stuff that he has accumulated over the years. And grandmother is saying this is not just stuff. This stuff has its own energies in multi dimensions. It has magnetic fields, seen and unseen. That each item in that garage carries a memory for this old man. It carries a memory of location, of a time. It's a record. And he has just all of there, and it's just all piled up on top of each other, full of dust and rats and bugs and everything else is in there. But to him, it's precious because he has attached each item has a charge, an energy charge, a magnetic memory, like a holographic image. When he picks it up, it instantly, he's transported to the moment and he reconnects and relives whatever that is, represents. How do I know that? Because I I was that grandpa, okay? And my kids, my daughter, I had things from my mother. I had things when my daughter was a child, and I wanted her to give it to her child, pass it on. And she's like, I'm not putting that thing on my child. And I was hurt. What do you mean? This is an antique. This was your baby clothes. This was your dress. You should. And it was in good condition. It wasn't like it was roach or rat infested, or it was preserved, well preserved. But she was still just the young generation. No, mama. You know, I want new things for my baby. I don't want these old things. And you need to get rid of all of this old stuff. You need to throw it away. And I had to go through therapy because when you are a person um, who grew up like I did, who did not have much, and who experienced what you did have, we moved a lot. And so my mother was the type of woman who you go to school one day and you come home and she talking about we getting ready to move. Pack what you want and we leaving everything else. So it wasn't about getting attached to certain things. And so as I became an adult and my own woman, it was hard for me to let go of certain things. And that was that attachment. And looking at it now from my spiritual wisdom, I realized it wasn't just things, it's thoughts, it's memories, it's feelings, it's attitudes. There's so many things that's me, that's mine. I'm not giving it up, I'm not letting it go. You can't deal with it, too bad. And that's the immaturity. That is the Ebenezer Scrooge. That's the hoarding. That's the holding on. I'm not exchanging this energy with you. I'm not giving up this energy. This is almost my God. I'm not, no. This is part of my God collection. No. You can't have none of this. And it gets to be a vicious cycle. And there are many, I know many of you have watched the pictures, the little documentaries and the little series, Hoarders. I was never that bad, but I was close, but not that bad. But it is a attachment. It is an energy. It is one of the powers and principalities that can hold you because it comes from your mind, comes from your thoughts and your feelings. And this is what I'm speaking of. This is what grandmother has been speaking of on this blood, after this blood moon. And when we're talking about Christmas, the birth of Christ, and that is the time of giving, exchanging energies, of being abundant, of rewarding, of rebirth. And so it's like I said, the magnetic currencies is what she has me speaking on. And these, the red and the blue, the root chakra, that where the greed and the desires and the fear of having something taken away from you and it being yours, and all of that is in the root chakra, and it comes up through the throat because it's not, your heart is blocked, and so it comes out in a negative fashion, and it manifests itself in a negative fashion. And it is perceived in your presence that way. And it is only until you unblock that heart and you have a direct line that you can give and transmute what was so negative before. Individually and collectively, think about energy accumulations that are unseen, that come from the other bodies, and multiply it by 10. If you think of all your mental thoughts that you carry as an individual, this is what she's saying with this. As an individual, one person, one being, just one, yourself. Think of all of the thoughts that you have ever thought. Think of all the emotions you have ever felt. Think of every place you have physically been with your body, your physical body. And then think of your spirit, which is able to travel all over. And she says, now think of everybody else's thoughts, everybody else's feelings. How many billions of people on the earth right now? And how many billions and billions and billions have been here over the centuries, over the ages? And what she's saying is energy is not destroyed. It is received, it is transmitted, and it is transmuted. This is what we are seeing and receiving and dealing with and working with and being influenced by. And we have not, we collectively, as conscious beings, are just now getting to a point where we're ascending our lower natures. We're rising up from that root. Our heart is aligning with compassion. It's opening up. It's no longer, like Scrooge, squeezed shut. It's opening. It's expanding into the vastness by compassion, with empathy, with unconditional love, with the hope and the faith in unconditional love, with the remembrance of these things. And the more sensitive you are, the more you're realizing and you're opening and you're like, where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? And then it's starting to, make sense. And like I said, your guides start talking to you and you start to see all these little times, 111, 222, 333, 444, 1111, 1212, 1222, and all these little codes and signs. And you start seeing different insects. And there was a spider a couple of days ago, big spider, big black spider. And she had overnight spun this huge web on, it was part attached to my screen door and part to the little light out there. And I guess she didn't like the way it was, and she was just taking it down. And I was just watching her take this huge spider web down, and it was amazing to me. And there were many messages in her efforts. Do you know how tirelessly she worked to create that? And it was perfect. I mean, it was huge and it was sectioned off and it was just a beautiful web. And here she was taking it down, section by section. She didn't just walk away from it. She was taking it down. And like I said, there was a lot there for me. It spoke volumes to me on so many different levels, about taking care of your own energy and about your thoughts and your feelings. Sometimes we have to take those things down, take the charge from them, take the energy from them, remove them from how we had sewn them, woven them together as a story, and pull those threads loose, pull those cords, and let that unravel, because it's no longer the truth. It will no longer hold or support our weight. It is no longer home. It is no longer the dream. It is no longer the vision. And it needs to be taken down. And you created it. So you have to take it down. You are the creator and the destroyer. It is all your energy. And you are reclaiming your energy. So I just thought that was magnificent to watch her do that. Remember, this is just an average lifetime, with maybe some items passed down through the generations, with their own anchored energies that collect and add on energies yet to be passed on. Grandmother said this is why we call it history. And of course, I piped in with my 2 cents and asked why not her story. Her eyes twinkled and she said, think of a woman's ovaries. Think of the energy currents that have been hoarded and stored there. Now think of the polarities and paradoxes of men and women. Women store theirs inside. Add to it the stored semen of the man. Pass them on to their children. Genetic baggage is hoarded and inherited. That is why it's called the sins of the father, who in this particular lesson is Scrooge, who must change his value system. And that is why I went into the details of the characteristic of Scrooge that led all the way back to Dickinson and who the character was based upon and so forth and so on. And beloveds, this is such a gift from grandmother. Excuse me. Um, I'm just going to read this part and speak what's coming up because there's so much coming up. Think of a woman's ovaries. When you think of a woman's ovaries, beloveds, I want you to let go of the biological knowledge that you have, and I want you to look at it through the lens of quantum um, biotech, I guess you would call it. And I want you to understand those eggs are like batteries. And they are those batteries, those little seeds, those little eggs, each one is dispensed monthly on a 28-day cycle. Um, and that womb is charged, and the egg is charged, and it's waiting on a semen that's also charged. And when there is a uniting, the energy multiplies and replicates itself into cells, cells that eventually allow the incarnation of a spiritual being into flesh to be born on this earth. And so you have all the genetic information hoarded, is what grandmother wants me to um, emphasize. That's the word, emphasize. Um, all of the genetic memories, all the Akashic records, all of the energy from the thoughts, the feelings, the locations, the spirit of every being before, the ancestors, are in those eggs. They're stored there. That is a treasure house. And each of those little vortexes, little seeds, has a magnetic field, a physical magnetic field. Like think about the rings around Saturn, and I want you to think about, she said, look at it that way. It's just going so fast. Okay. Okay. Sorry. The body, the currencies of energy as the rings, just like you think of the chakras stacked up all the way to the crown chakra, from the root all the way to the crown. Think of these rings on the outside, like Saturn rings. One for the thoughts, that's the mental ring. And in that mental ring is all your thoughts. And it's an energy frequency all around, just swirling, 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 swirling around you. And then you have your emotional body ring. And it's spinning and spinning and spinning. And it's all about feelings. And it's magnetizing all the feelings in the world that have ever been yours and everybody else's that have ever existed. Okay, this is, then you have the physical ring, magnetic ring. And this is, picks up, transmits, and transmutes from the environment and location. Okay, and then you have the fourth ring, magnetic ring. And it is your conscious awareness. And it is studies spinning and magnetizing, and it receives, transmits, and transmutes conscious awareness. This is your spiritual ring. And so this is what she is saying. And she's saying that all of this exists inside of each seed. The male seed, which is the sperm, and the female seed, which is the egg or the ovum. And when they join, they merge. And there is just so much there. And if you understand what you are merging, you have to understand that all of this merging energy creates a divine vessel for what has no form to inhabit and to animate. But the mind resists the spirit. When you start to learn words, when you start to be told your name is this, that you are a girl, that you are black, that you are poor, that you live in this country, that you are this, you are this, everything else goes dormant. Your attention goes to your senses now. And you're taught to give more. What are you told as a child? Pay attention. Pay attention. Pay attention. Get out of your head. Stop daydreaming. Earth to Valerie. Why? Because I am still able to receive, transmit, and transmute, as well as inhabit. Be consciously aware that I'm in this body with these feelings, with these thoughts, with these emotions, in this location, in this now moment. But I also have flashes and memories of other lives and other things and other wisdom and other knowledge and intuition and instinct and everything else. And it's, nobody tells me how to deal with this all. Nobody taught me, what is this? Girl, you crazy. And so you learn to turn that off. You learn to dim it. You learn to tune it down. And then the chaos of the world and everything else gets louder and louder and louder until you can't take it anymore. And you shut down. Some say you have a nervous breakdown. Some say you become depressed. Some say you become repressed. Some say you just start isolating yourself because you've had enough. You're bombarded constantly. Your fields, all those four fields are constantly turning, constantly, 24/7, 365, receiving, transmitting, transmutating. This is going on even subconsciously when you are asleep. You're dreaming. It's still going on. It's still playing out in your dreams. Some have visions. Some travel. All kinds of things. This is what grandmother is saying with this super moon that and this Aquarian age. Beloved, excuse me for fidgeting. I'm just resettling energies and everything else. So just bear with me, regardless of what it looks like. It is more than what it seems. So, I'm grounding myself again, beloved. It's very deep. And again, the fact that the divine intelligence and wisdom to sit up here and use Scrooge and Job and then Satan, the devil, and Lilith and Adam and the whole. Oh, we ain't even got to that yet. Let me get to that. Okay. Think of a woman's ovaries. Think of the energy currents that have been hoarded and stored there. Now think of the polarities and paradoxes of men and women. Think of the relationships, the meetings, the blendings, the attraction, the repelling, the whole thing of all of these different magnetic forces, okay? That you are such a divine incarnated being that you draw to you every experience that is going to help develop you. Whether in the moment, trauma and tragedy are polarities for what? What's the polarity for trauma? Being happy. Coexisting peacefully. We have to experience the polarities in order to get a sense of navigation. And just as we were shown with the example of Job, when the Lord told Satan, okay, you can have Adam, but you can't touch your soul. But you can mess with him. Go ahead. Mess with his mind, his feelings, his thoughts. When you mess with somebody's feelings, I want you to understand, messing with him caused him to think, caused him to doubt, caused him to break out in hives, caused his friends to come and blah, 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 to cause more doubts, more this and more that. But Job stayed grounded in himself, even though he hurt, even though all of this tragedy was outside of him, he was still that lighthouse to himself, regardless of what it looked like to those who knew him. You just need to curse God and die. You did something. You did something. But Job knew intimately his connection with God, and he said, this is what God wills. Then this is what God wills. This is what my God wills. Naked I came into this world. Who am I to say this was mine and that is mine and that was my child, and who the hell is you to take my child away from me when you gave it to me? I came here with nothing. I incarnated here with nothing but an existence. And now my mind and my thoughts and my feelings is wants to lead me around by my nose and put a collar on me and a leash and say, come on, sit boo boo, jump boo boo, bark boo boo. No, no. When you understand that you're more than that, you don't let your mind lead you by your nose or by your genitals or by your thoughts or by your feelings. You constantly say, I'm more than that. I incarnated into flesh, but I am spirit. Spirit leads me, not this mass up here, not this biological networking, nerves. I'm a much higher, wiser design capacity, and I'm aware. Unlike Cain, unlike all those other worlds that had to be destroyed because they let their minds lead them beyond repair. Just like how far away we talk about climate change. Greed has us poisoning the earth itself. We're speaking of hoarding. We're speaking of white supremacy. Let me move on. So I can get to everything, beloveds, because there's a lot that came up. Women store theirs inside. Add to it the stored semen of the man, pass them on to their children. Genetic baggage is hoarded and inherited. That is why it is called the sins of the father, who in this particular lesson is Scrooge, who must change his value system. He must stop hoarding, which represents the outside physical, mental, instinctive world, whereas the woman represents the inside spiritual, emotional, intuitive world. Remember the women in Scrooge's life and his lack of energy exchange with them. Okay, we have set the stage up enough to bring everything forward to the topic at hand. The revelation of hoarding found in the concept of white supremacy. Grandmother's revelation of reckoning and accountability. The haves and the have-nots, aka also known as the polarities and paradoxes of the ages. Hint, we are once again in the age of Aquarius. The concept of human versus human supremacy are philosophies that have been compromised and deemed comprised and deemed valuable, hoarded and inherited from many ages. The concept of human versus human supremacy. And let me just read and shut up, okay? Because the mind wants to take over. So, the concept of human versus human supremacy are philosophies that have been comprised and deemed valuable, hoarded and inherited for many ages. Let us say, because it is what grandmother showed me, this concept of supremacy began in the cradle of civilization, after Job, after Genesis, with Lilith, Adam, and Eve. Grandmother says here, to remember the wings the woman was given to leave. Remember what remained Adam and Eve and the serpent. So remember, wings were given to the woman so that she was able to leave paradise. What remained was Adam, Eve, and the serpent. Remember the hoarding of energies from all the bodies, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, still circulating in that location of paradise. Remember the exchanges of energies, the different conversations, the different needs, the different feelings, thoughts, so forth and so on. And Satan or the snake bringing up death, and death being given a focus, and death then entering into the conscious awareness as a remover, transmuter of sin, missing the mark. Remember their shame, guilt, blame, doubt, self-hate. So, beloveds, there are many things that are in the realm of paradise that are going to be removed, just as in heaven, as Satan was removed. So I want you, whether you believe this is literal, metaphorical, however you believe this, however you view this, it can be taken many different ways, okay? And it'll still make sense because it's spirit. Understand and see the pattern. Understand, understand, and see the repetition. And see that the energies do not change into something totally different. It is the same exact energy. It is just manifesting in different locations, through different bodies, through different ways and means. But it is the exact same magnetic field of energy. It is the exact same power and principality, current and currency. Being born within their conscious awareness. So basically what grandmother is saying, that Adam had all of this within him anyway. You know the story of Adam and Lilith, and then Lilith left, she was given wings and she left, and Eve was made from Adam's rib, and so he finally had a companion like him, someone who thought like him. She was a comforter and a companion to him because she thought like him. She felt like him. She came from him. She was designed from him. She was not designed from the earth. Adam and Lilith came from the earth. Eve came from Adam. Okay. Understand the distinctions that are being given. Being born within their conscious awareness, resulting in their disease of being conscious. Thus, they are removed from paradise, sent away from the tree of life because they had eaten from the tree of knowledge with forbidden fruits of good and evil. Conscious awareness is pure until you allow the mind to infect it with doubts. That is why the snake was called the most cunning of all the creatures, because it knew how to infect conscious awareness with doubt by the twisting of words. by the twisting of words that awoke the desires, the instincts and intuitions that were already within Adam and that were manifested even more so in Eve because she was a weaker vessel than Adam. And that's why Satan didn't go directly to Adam. He went to the weaker vessel, to Eve, the replication of Adam. Again, we're talking about hoarding. Again, she was duplicated from his rib. She was replicated from his rib, from that source, that backbone, that spine. The ribs hook onto the spine. Okay? And so, if you were going to engineer genetically a being from another being, you would graft it from that point. And that's what was done, and that's why she was called the weaker vessel. Let me keep going, because this is getting deeper and deeper. All of this is not written in here, and I'm like, okay. Cain went into exile. Wait a minute, I skipped way forward. Okay. Let me just, I need a minute, yeah. I need a minute. Okay, beloveds. I'm just going to continue where I stopped. Encased in flesh, physical skin, sensitive in ways that did not exist in paradise. Survival instinct takes over. Eve gives birth to Cain and Abel, who have inherited all energies, frequencies, spectrums, which were hoarded. Cain kills Abel because of jealousy, the same energy, form, thought, desire that plagued Adam so intensely he wanted Lilith to only be on the bottom, to be less, to be inferior to him, and which made Eve acceptable because he was first and she came into existence through him, through his, though his energy knocked the earth. Remember, the earth came to the rescue of the woman who was about to give birth. So, beloved, what grandmother is saying here is that when Adam and Eve were, right before they were thrown out of the garden, they realized that they were naked. They their magnetic fields took on a denser, concentrated energy, more matter. And because of this, they said they were naked. They were ashamed. And they wanted covering. And so skin was given to them. And then, with all of this and everything, they got kicked out because they could no longer stay in paradise with this denser concentration and lower, denser, whatever you want to call it, frequency. And they might then desire to go eat from the tree of life and be immortal in this lower form. Before they could do that, they were kicked out. And so when they were kicked out, they were like brand new beings. Brand new beings that now knew what pain was, knew what cold was. They had senses. Their flesh had senses. Things that they had never, they never worried about temperature before. They never worried about pain before. They never worried about, we don't even know if they saw color before or not. But once